Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. So, I wanted to give you my thoughts on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. It was a movie that I was really looking forward to because it was directed and written by James Gunn. And I'm someone who is a big fan of James Gunn. I love what he did with the Guardians Volume 1 and 2. I love the way that he brought these big, obscure comic book characters to life. A character that no one ever thought it would work until they saw the trailers for the first movie. And then after the film is released, everybody was blown away. It blew everything out of the water by making this a funny old school space opera film, and they gave us the characters that we can be attached to. And you have an incredible cast members like Chris Pratt, Zoe Saldana, Bradley Cooper, Vin Diesel, and Dave Bautista. It was incredible. It was very well delivered, and I love Volume 1. I enjoyed Volume 2, but not as much as Volume 1, because I thought Volume 2 to me was a little bit of a step back, because it put some of the jokes that felt very misplaced at times, and it kind of went a little too far, but I still enjoyed it as a whole. It was still a good follow-up to Volume 1. And then we continue on to Avengers Infinity War, where the Guardians of the Galaxy became one of the main characters in an important part of the story because it had something to do with Thanos, and they had to team up with the Avengers to take him on. Then we get into Avengers Endgame, which now that most of the Guardians have been zapped out of existence, and one of the Guardians had to team up with the original 6 Avengers to bring everybody back. And then we get into Thor Love and Thunder, which to me, I thought Love and Thunder was terrible. I mean, I liked it when I first saw it in the theater, but then it got worse the more I watched it, and it did not hold up as much as I was hoping for. But you only get a chance to see the Guardians teaming up with Thor for a short amount of time. I mean, the only thing you need to know is that they fought together and then they parted ways. They never bothered to mention it afterwards, to be honest with you. They didn't. So it's a kind of movie that you would skip over if you were to rewatch these MCU films that has something to do with the Guardians of the Galaxy. And then we get into the holiday special, which it was a project that I never had any interest in it whatsoever. I thought it was a stupid idea, but then watching it, I thought James Gunn delivered one of the best holiday specials ever put out there. And it, even though it was so goofy at times, but it added very heart, and it was an important key to the story with Peter Quill and Mantis, which I ate it up. And Kevin Bacon was such a great addition to that special, and it was so well done. And look, at the time that when Guardians Volume 3 was in development, it was supposed to get made years ago. But at the time, James Gunn got fired by Disney for some of the dumb reasons, and then he switched it over to WB for the DC film, and it was The Suicide Squad, which I personally loved it. It was another banger film, an R-rated comic book film that we hardly get with DC or Marvel, and it was amazing. I mean, it was unfortunate that Suicide Squad didn't make as much money as they were hoping for because the circumstances of the COVID for the theaters reopening, and then for some stupid reason when it was under the different regime from WB, that they showed day-to-day release on streaming through HBO Max, and that's why the film flopped at the box office. But critics and audiences, including myself, loved it. Then he did the Peacemaker spinoff, which was the spinoff from the Suicide Squad, and I thought Peacemaker slaps. Another project that I didn't have any interest in, but surprisingly, it was great. And it was arguably the best current DC show out there. Not the best, but the best that we've had recent. And John Cena was great. I thought James Gunn delivered a great comedy and much of the emotional, heartfelt moments. And now we get into Guardians Volume 3, which I'm not going to lie, was I nervous going into this movie? Yes, I was a little bit nervous because lately the MCU movies have not been delivering with their quality for movies and TV shows. There were a few of them that had exceptions, like Shang-Chi and Spider-Man No Way Home, which those movies were top tier. And then a couple of Disney Plus shows like Moon Knight and Loki, those were one of my favorites. And then WandaVision, I will say that WandaVision was great for the first half until the finale. Then it became very little disappointment. But most of the MCU shows and movies have been very disappointing. They've been very mid, and some of them were terrible. Like lately, we had Quantumania, which I did like most parts of Quantumania, but I still walked out of the theater very disappointed. It really let me down a lot more than I thought it would. I thought it was going to be another good film that we were going to get this year, but unfortunately we didn't. But now we going into Guardians Volume 3, and after coming out of this theater, I will say this movie delivers on the hype. It was everything that I've ever hoped for. It was much more emotional and very heavy than I expected. Yes, there's a lot of jokes and humor in the movie, but you know what? It was a lot more improvement over Volume 2. It actually worked. I laughed a lot. I had a great time watching this. James Gunn did everything that he set out to do, was to give us the proper conclusion to the Guardians characters that we have grown to for pretty much almost 9 years now. I mean, I can't believe that the Volume 1 came out like 9 years ago. I mean, I still remember from the first movie that came out like it was yesterday. I love how they handle these characters. I love that every character gets their moment and their closure. And yes, this is more of Rocket's story, and they definitely delivered his backstory and what happened to him when he was being experimented on, which was the main villain named High Evolutionary. He was a brutal character, and the actor who played High Evolutionary was the same actor that was in Peacemaker, and I thought he was great in Peacemaker. And him coming on as the villain, I thought he really delivered being the villain. Now look, he's not the villain that you would care or sympathize with. He's nothing like Thanos. He's more of a character who is so evil, but he's evil with a purpose. He's a character that was chasing after perfection for these animals and making them perfect and making them different. He was so obsessed with it. He was such a fanatic and a psychopath, and he was very menacing on screen, and he delivered it on his performance. There was a few scenes, without giving away too much, there were moments in there that was so difficult to watch, and it was emotional. And yes, James Gunn delivered with the drama, and it was way more emotional than Volume 1 and 2, and it was very dark too. It's like you may see a lot of great comedy with humor in it, but James Gunn delivers the dark tone of the movie. It's much darker than the first two. It's a little bit more mature than I expected it to be, and there were a few moments in the film that felt very graphic. That was like, I sat there in the theater and was like, wow, this one, it doesn't feel like it was made for kids. Like, there was moments where I was like, oh my god, I cannot believe he went there. But it was not in the negative way. It was in the positive way, because it didn't disappoint. I thought the action and the visual effects delivered. The fight scenes were great. Them banding together was amazing. The performances were incredible. And like I said before, that this is definitely more of Rocket's story, because if you look back on Volume 1 and 2, this was more of Peter Quill's story. And then you look back in Infinity War, it was more focused on Gamora's story, and because of what happened in Infinity War with Thanos, because of her relation to her father. Overall, this is definitely one of the top tier MCU movies that we've seen in a while. This is definitely the best MCU film since Avengers Endgame and No Way Home. I gotta give credit to James Gunn for giving us a great conclusion to the film, to the characters. I was emotional. I was so sad to see them go. And look, I'm not gonna give away too much of it. I don't want to ruin it for you guys, but I think you're gonna be very satisfied with it. If you're someone who really loves the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, you're gonna be very satisfied with this movie. It definitely delivered everything I hoped for. This is definitely one of my favorite movies of the year so far. I thought it was great, and it's a movie that I would go watch again in the theater, and you have to see this on the big screen with an audience. I know I said this before in my last reviews, but if you do not wait for it to go to streaming, if you're someone that was very disappointed with the MCU lately, this is one of the films that you will not be disappointed. It definitely delivers the emotionality, it delivers the entertainment, and I walked out of the theater like smiling and in tears. And you should definitely bring your tissues with you as well. And if you want to know if there's any post-credit scenes, there is 2 post-credit scenes, so don't get up out of your chair just yet. There was one negative that I forgot to mention, that I thought that Will Poulter's Adam Warlock was a little bit of a letdown. I'm not saying that Will Poulter was bad in the movie. He was great, performance-wise, but most of the time he was there to drive the heroes further for the plot. And I wish they would have developed him a little bit more in the movie. But that's really a negative that I can only think of. And yes, this is definitely a longer movie. It's the longest film out of the 3 movies. And I will say that if you really love a lot of James Gunn's movies, like aside from Guardians Volume 1 and 2, he made The Suicide Squad, which that movie was great. If you love The Suicide Squad, there's no doubt in my mind that you will love Guardians Volume 3. I really trust James Gunn's future projects for the DC universe. He's now the CEO at DC. He has a lot of plans going on in the future. I am so excited to what he's going to bring for Superman Legacy. He's going to be writing and directing the film, and I can't wait to see what he'll bring. And he even brought it up before on social media that he's not going to make this movie a comedy. He's not going to make the Guardians of the Galaxy tone. He's definitely going to make this more of a dramatic and more levity of the Superman character and more faithful. And that's what I'm hoping that he'll do, and I hope that he delivers. And I completely trust him that he will give us a great storytelling for the DC universe, because he only cares about storytelling and characters. He's not just there for the quantity, he's there for the quality. And that's what I'm glad to hear. He's going to bring in some of the OG DC characters who are familiar faces, and he's going to bring in some fresh face that has never been adapted into live action before, and that's what he's great at. He's going to have a great balance, and he is a big comic book nerd. Overall, definitely check out Guardians Volume 3 if you haven't already. And if you have seen it, what did you think of it? Were you just on the same boat as me? Were you satisfied with the film? Or you were someone out there that was just disappointed and it just did not resonate with you? Jump down in the comment section below and leave me your thoughts. I would love to hear it. And like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I will be doing more reviews along the way, and I'm very active on social media on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. Go and check it out, and I will put all the link in the description down below.